and welcome to Ungimmick. We are all here today for another episode. We have Alex Moreau, Connor McDonald, Matthew O'Neill, and Sanjeev Vinod.
Hello.
My name is Gonçalo Souza. Super excited to be here. And today we will be talking about virtual magic and Zoom magic, interactive live magic over the interwebs. And to present that topic today for us, we have Connor McDonald.
Thank you.
Anytime.
With the current circumstances, I personally believe that magic has really stepped up to the challenge. There have been plenty of free resources available online, and there have been numerous Zoom shows that have been set up. But is that necessarily a good thing for the art of magic? Now, last episode we had some fun, we laughed a lot, had a great time, but today I actually just want to sit down and talk about this topic. What's your opinion about Zoom magic shows?
Well, first of all, it's hilarious that this episode is probably gonna come out when people are gonna maybe start reperforming slowly. We're a little late on the trend here.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, exactly.
It is relevant, though.
It is very relevant.
It's something that's been on our minds. And I want to just start with a quick note that magicians, I'm incredibly proud of our community, because magic to me is innovation. Magic is when faced with impossible odds, we find a way to do it. We find a method. And we've been very innovative. I mean, I've heard some inspiring stories, right? There's the guy who was walking around offering at the door magic shows. He would stand 6 feet away and do magic for you. I think that's an interesting idea. So much virtual magic. It's gonna become a thing that's staying. I don't think it's gonna go. So I would say, just definitions wise, we might have to separate our definition for the art of magic here and distinguish live in-person magic and virtual magic, because I think they're going to be taking very different routes moving forward.
I think you're absolutely right.
I think it's not a hot take to say that there's going to be a before and an after coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're going to experience the differences in our daily approaches to magic, especially performing for people, for the foreseeable future. I think for the next couple of years, it's going to be at least subtle changes in the dynamics and the how to perceive sharing things, etc. And a lot of people sort of put the realness, the person-in-person aspect of magic into the definition of magic. I know a lot of people which don't consider Zoom magic to be magic, which, by the way, a lot of those people are very happy to be doing Zoom shows right now. So all I'm saying is it's easy to have opinions where it doesn't really matter. But those opinions are absolutely valid. And I have to say that Zoom shows are a little bit of an oddity, and I'm very excited to talk and let's see if we can figure out the ins and outs and clash our opinions there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to start off by just saying, by no means are any of us experts on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single topic, by the way.
Yeah, like every other topic that we've had. But this is strictly just, what do we feel? We are all entitled to emotions and opinions. That's just what I want to hear.
Well, here's an opinion for you. It's really hard to do a good in the most literal, like people walking out of there saying, "Damn, I am so happy I paid money to see that Zoom show." It is so hard to do that. I think Helder did it amazing. Elder did it amazingly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alex and I saw the press.
Yeah, because you didn't pay for the ticket.
That's why it was amazing.
Could you explain what it was?
Explain. Well, as a show,
it is true that you're absolutely right. But I have to say, I think that's because we just took an extra layer of filter out. Because usually to perform a show, you have to manage to get yourself booked, which usually entails having business cards, a website, relationships, getting known, and doing maybe some free or discounted things to get your name out there. Here, you could set up a camera, make a Facebook post, and there was a good chance that you were going to get a show that very week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, in my honest opinion, most Zoom shows were very subpar.
Yeah.
Which I am not mad about, just to be clear. I think it's part of the game, And if there's an opportunity out there to get mediocre shows on the way so people realize what's good, what's not, and figure out what they want to do, what they don't, by all means, like, take it.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like how do you say un constat, an observation. It's an observation. I'm not taking sides here.
I think a way to phrase it is, at the outset, Zoom shows were regular magic shows performed on Zoom. That's all they were.
Yes, and that's why they didn't work as well as they could, and as well as we've seen them work in the past couple months of development.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Zoom show is a really hard medium, and we need to appropriate the medium, really. Because it's not about doing, like, watching a video. Because then it's just, like, a magic show you can find on Netflix, but that you can't pause, so it's more inconvenient.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you don't want it to be, I'm going to call it like a Lego show, where people just do things themselves. I think there still has to be a decent amount of you performing directly for people, because that's where you're there. And I'm going to praise Helder's show here, and I'm going to stick to Helder. I'm sorry, Gonzalo.
Amazing balance.
It was wonderfully balanced between, oh, it's a hands-on thing with things around my house, and I'm watching him do something. So it's a very delicate balance to achieve, and I think very few have achieved it.
Yeah, very few have achieved it, and that's why I'm just gonna go out and say it, and then it's your guys' job to persuade me. I don't think Magic should be on Zoom. Although now I think there's a difference. I think it can be done properly, and I think that it is being done well. People are being entertained. I think it keeps the Magic community engaged. But my initial take on this is that this is a really bold statement. I don't even want to say it. I think it's somewhat disrespecting the art and showmanship of what Magic is. And I know that's a very traditionalist opinion. But, I mean, what do you guys think on that?
I'm going to disagree with you 3,000%. I think that this could be a new break for the art. Because now...
Thank you, Gonzalo. You've just given me an opportunity to disagree with both of you.
Yeah, this is funny.
No, but I do think, and let me elaborate on my point for a little bit. The possibility that we have right now, because right now, as we understand Magic, there are two ways you can consume Magic. You can either go to a show in person and you see that show, or you watch a recording of that show, or you watch the TV or the show on TV, or something like. So it's Zoom bridges that gap where you are watching something, but you're still directly involved in it. It can still be catered to you. It can still be interactive, and it can still be a show in the sense of or closer to a real show, but you can use many different aspects that you couldn't use before. You have a lot more variables that you have to consider, and you can use those variables to your advantage. The camera, of course, being the biggest one. When you're working on TV and now on Zoom, whatever's off camera is never showed. It opens up a numerous amount of possibilities for what you can.
But
and
people
can't
know
do.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
People know that you can do stuff off camera. Listen to this.
People know that you can
It's
do sleight of hand.
possible.
Yeah.
I don't. But people are watching. They genuinely cannot see what's off of frame. Here's the thing. This is, I think, what a point Connor that's implied a little bit is that you were right that it's a middle ground between both aspects of a live show and a recorded show, but I don't know if it's the middle ground of the best aspects, because like Sanjeev was saying, you can't pause it as you could watch pause a recording, and you don't get the emotional feel because crowd energy is very real, and it's a form of mass hysteria, essentially. Basically, that's why stand-up comedy is amazing, because laughter is contagious. Emotion in a room with people is contagious, and it's not.
But
contagious
I mean,
over
I
Zoom.
think he's expressing a little. I wouldn't agree with everything he said, but I think he said something that's interesting. You said it bridges a gap. I think that's a gap that doesn't need to be bridged, or not to the scale of what we're seeing, because I think that putting in the effort to buy your tickets and everything for Zoom, I think in a vast majority of cases, those people can put the same effort into going an actual show. So unfortunately, you don't really get the best of both worlds. You sort of get the worst of both worlds, where it's still inconvenient because there's a specific time, you need to respect the performer, you need to not speak, etc. And you don't get the full live experience. So I get that it's going to appeal to some people or some circumstances, but I'm going to say in the vast majority of cases, I would much rather go full on one way or full on the
Every
other.
case.
I'm sorry. I think you're thinking too much in the present time. In what we are seeing right, and I know it's funny saying the
No,
present
I'm
because
very
we are
much
referring,
thinking on
but
a normal circumstance.
but
Like
I don't
when life is normal.
I don't think you are taking into consideration the possibilities that Zoom shows could bring, and the
But I think
new
you're thinking
things
from the
and the
magician's point of
innovations that
view.
can come from it. No, but the art will innovate to fit there. The art will create new things that we haven't seen yet, that will bring out those emotions to the Zoom. I just
Mhm.
don't think we have reached it yet.
But the thing is, you're not trying to convince magicians here. You're trying to convince audiences.
Okay, real quick, Alex. First of all, I will say it makes me very happy to get to a topic where we all disagree. I did miss this. It is nice to argue. My point, I'm going to stick to what I said at first. I think magic and Zoom magic are different things. Yes, we use the same word magic for both of them, but they're very different. The Jerks has an incredible analogy between sleight of hand technicians and performing magicians. He says a person who plays the guitar and a person who makes guitars, those are two different hobbies. Just because they involve guitars doesn't make them the same thing. People who love the moves, the sleights, the technique, that is one hobby. People who perform, whatever, they focus on different constraints, that's a different hobby. And
I don't know if that's a fair comparison.
give me a sec. And using these same constraints to judge both would be discrediting both. Similarly, you cannot use the same constraints to judge magic versus judging Zoom magic. They are different art forms. And which one's better right now? Obviously, magic is better than Zoom magic because magic has had centuries to develop and for people to innovate on it, while Zoom magic has had around a couple months, probably even less. But give it some time, and I think Zoom magic, to me, it's like a cardistry. It starts out, everyone's like, this is dumb, this sucks, and then it builds a community of loyal followers. It builds a community of close, like-minded individuals, and I think just give it time, and there's going to be a huge influx of people doing Zoom shows. A bunch of them are going to be terrible, but because there's so much supply, now demand will come up to meet it, and then the good ones will start getting recognition, and the bad ones will start getting left behind. The same thing that happens in magic, albeit slowly. It's definitely been accelerated because of Corona, but I think that they are two different things, and we need to judge them separately to be able to do them both credit.
In agreement.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I do think we need to kind of separate the two and then tackle them both differently. The situation we're in right now has quite literally, it has almost zero barriers to entry.
Yeah.
Anyone
Yeah.
and their mom can do a magic Zoom show. And so I guess maybe part of the thing is it's just that so many people are doing it that we're just bound to see some that are mediocre.
And it's Corona. You can't go to an in-person magic show. We need to consider a normal circumstance where there's both options. And I think you will find that there is a loyal demand for both separately. And yes, people, I agree with Alex, go one way or another. I don't, in general, like jack-of-all-trade magicians who say, I do kid shows, I do parties, I do bar mitzvahs, and I do formal theater shows, I do everything. Because I don't know if it's possible to dedicate your life to everything and then do everything really well. Instead, I'm sure we're going to start seeing a breed of people who do only Zoom shows, and they do them really well to the point where that Zoom show becomes something that's talked about, and some people would go to that Zoom show over so many in-person magic shows.
I think we can still judge it on a universal standard, and it is a universal standard of all performing arts, which is, if I'm paying money to see something, is it entertaining? Do I enjoy it? If I'm going to see an artistic thing, does it move me? If I'm going to see an entertaining thing, does it entertain me? Because the supply and demand of the marketplace will be determined by, does this thing make me feel like I spent my money wisely? And unfortunately, I know you're going to say the art is going to improve, and which, I mean, for the sake of people not wasting their money, I really hope it does.
Like Zoom magic
shows.
is going to improve? Okay.
Zoom magic is going to improve, and for the sake of all people not wasting their money, I hope it does.
No,
but because there's a lot.
It was born out of necessity.
Exactly.
It was born out of necessity. So what we're seeing right now is people scrambling to survive, quite literally, because you have magicians working and doing their thing, and from in a week, all their shows for the next 6 months got cut off.
Yeah.
So out of necessity,
Born out of necessity,
it is.
so not intuitively good until we had to need it.
Of course. So now that we have the base, and now that we can analyze it with a couple of months, just a couple of months in between, we can look back and say, okay, these things have worked better. These things have not worked so well. There are things that most people will never try in a Zoom show again, because either they intuitively say this will not work, or guy XYZ tried this and it didn't work. And you'll start seeing, the more time that you give Zoom shows to go on, the more things will be tried, and you will eventually start seeing things that work really, really well. Because if we're sitting here and we're saying that no Zoom show in the past 3 months has been good, we will be lying to ourselves. Or no moment in a Zoom show, even if this guy did a show that's not good overall, I'm sure that he had one moment or another that can be picked and can be analyzed. Okay, this works in a Zoom. This can go here, this can go there, and furthering what this will be.
I disagree. Like, the thing is, the big problem I have is you guys have been making great points for the past 10 minutes, and you've been exclusively talking about magicians in regards to their show. You're forgetting the most important thing of the show, which is the audience. And the reason why audiences are in Zoom shows right now is not because they prefer over something else. It's because it's the only supply, of course.
Absolutely.
So the problem with Zoom shows, and now they are entirely dependent on a social situation, which I think is a pretty normal take to say is shit. When people are going to get an opportunity to live more normally, which, it can take months, years, whatever. Not only Zoom is going to go back to its normal, but I think there's going to be a significant decrease. Because now suddenly people are going to be so happy to go outside. And now the exact inverse effect is going to happen. Where there's the big spike, now there's a big wall. And so many people that have invested efforts into creating Zoom shows go, wait a second. Not only are people outside, but they're even more outside than before because they're so happy of being outside.
Going outside is objectively better.
So... So you see what I mean?
Is it objectively better? I'm sure that
Yes.
there are for you.
No,
I'm sure,
I
and
don't
for me
agree
as
with
well.
that, Matthew.
I'm sure that there are people.
Point.
I'm sure that there are people that have seen Zoom shows and they're like, amazing! I get magic and I can keep my ass in my couch.
Yes. Connor, sorry, real quick.
I mean, okay. Just to go off that point, 6 months ago, where were those people?
But those people weren't there because that was not a thing.
It was a thing.
It was, but it wasn't. It wasn't commonly known. It wasn't.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a thing.
And so people got to it only when it was the only option.
Because it was only developed when it was the only option.
Exactly.
Okay, Connor,
Now that-
No, shh.
I love you, Sanjeev.
Connor,
I love you.
No,
so
I'm
much.
sorry. We get really engaged with the topic and we lose track
No, of course.
of manners. Yes, please.
So, I think we're all in hopefully somewhat in agreement that Zoom shows were, for the most part, created due to supply and demand. Purely
Necessity,
an economical and financial situation that primarily Zoom shows have been created on.
That's how they became widespread. Yes.
Yes. But does that mean they are good for the future?
Yes.
And I want to say I want to say something that, me personally, magic, going to see a magic show isn't just going to see a magician. Think of it like a movie. We're going to the magic castle. You get dressed up. You put on the blazer. You walk into this land of mystery. The magic isn't just the magic show. It is also the experience of getting dressed up and going to see a magic show at 12 o'clock at night in the middle of the woods, and then Alex and Matt, but once again, it can be done correctly. You guys did see a really good magic show where you got to send this box, this mystery box, I don't know.
What I find is hilarious is we're all using the same evidence to make drastically different things. Opposing views. Connor,
is.
yes, it's an experience. That's
is.
what it's about. But Zoom, dude, we need to address the advantages Zoom magic has over magic. And I will confidently say Zoom magic can do many things that magic cannot do and will never be able to do. First, comfort of your own home. Okay? To us, to a group of magicians bred on a decade of in-person magic, magic in your own home doesn't sound so great. But let's address our biases. Second,
Magic in your own home with thousands of other people.
Don't interrupt. Second, imagine getting together family from all across the world. Imagine your extended family who you call, sure, a WhatsApp call, which is like fine, a video call, which is cool, and you tell them, I see birthday parties, shows I perform at, this is family that have not interacted with each other in such an intimate setting in so long, and you are bringing those people together when physical distance, geography, and so many other barriers prevent it. And third, cost. I'm pretty sure Zoom shows are right now and are always going to be more affordable than in-person magic, because in-person magic has theater costs, so many other things, blah, 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 blah. So affordability, boom. Connecting people across long distance who would probably not be able to see each other otherwise. I'm going to repeat that, not be able to. It's not, for some people, it's not a choice. Some people have to stay in a country halfway across the world. They have to take care of so many things there, and you will just not be able to visit them. But Zoom magic can bring together people like that, and that is an experience of its own. Yes, think from the audience's point of view, but I think saying that, oh, going outside is objectively better, that's oversimplifying our audiences, and I don't think we should fall into that trap. And I think there's a lot that the experience of Zoom magic gives people. It's a lot of joy that they cannot and might not even possibly be able to get from an in-person magic show, even in a time where it's not a necessity, even in a time where it's not the only option like now.
Absolutely, and I agree with lots of things you just said. And I wasn't trying to say that all Zoom magics are show. I objectively complimented a good amount of them. But the problem is, I think that everyone is vastly overestimating. Like, if you're listening to this, there is a 97.9% chance that Zoom shows are a thing for you now, and as soon as Corona quarantine is over, Zoom shows are no longer a thing for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to see specialists make amazing shows and have great experiences. But I think that, it's just like, everyone talks about it like they're going to be the next Zoom star for the next 10 years, which they're not.
Bro,
which
y'all
is a big problem
suck.
I have.
Y'all suck.
Which,
Elder, he gets away with it because this man is a thinker. He is an artist, and he has spent years honing his craft. I do not think he just tossed together things from his in-person show and he was like, let me make this a Zoom show. He must have given that days, weeks of thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So essentially, that's what I'm trying to say is that there isn't like Zoom shows are horrible and we just need to do in person. But the thing is, almost every single magician in existence is going to go back to do physical shows when it's going to be a good idea economically and artistically and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are talking from a point of view that isn't really pertinent. That doesn't like
It's not relevant.
It's
it's not
hypothetical.
It's not as relevant. Like, you can talk about Zoom shows on the short term because that's what you're doing. But let's be real. Taking the opportunity, you're probably going to do real magic. And if you're not, well, then we can get into another discussion about what's the future of Zoom shows, etc.
I think if given the opportunity, we five, people like us.
So that's what I said,
will
the
do
overwhelming
real
majority.
magic.
And if you're not in that overwhelming majority,
You'll get
by all
specialists.
means,
You will
we can
get
talk about it. All I'm
specialists.
saying,
I think that majority is going to slowly be growing. I think you're going to start seeing people who are Zoom magicians.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of an example from history. But
I'm not sure I'm getting my point across. All I'm saying is that if you are part of the people that you know for yourself, you're going to back to performing physically as soon as you can, maybe you should not participate as actively in long-term development of Zoom
100%
magic.
agree.
Which
Yeah,
is
just-
that's my
yes.
point, is that we should leave people that want to specialize in Zoom magic talk and not just flood with
Bad Zoom
opinions that
magic.
are not
I love it.
relevant.
I love
That's
it.
my point.
And spend your time now, instead of trying to market a mediocre Zoom show, hone your craft and think of better close-up material. Yeah. Unless you're going to put in the time and the effort to make a good Zoom show that you put in your all, don't do it. I like that. That's interesting.
With a little bit of agreement, we have to do the part. The part that I most hate about this show,
Oh, is it the
which
halfway
is the
point?
part which is the part where I interrupt everybody.
We have
We're
a whole
like 10
half
minutes
left.
past
This
halfway
is
point.
lit.
Yes, so I let it roll because we were just talking, but I do have to send you to our social medias. We are on Facebook, .com/ungimmick, Instagram @ungimmick. Come chat with us. We would love to hear from you. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or youtube.com/ungimmick. We are on Patreon, .com/ungimmick. And please share this podcast with a friend. If you know somebody that would like to listen to this, just send them a link and bring them to the family. And according to my contract, I do have to say that ungimmick is spelled UNGIMMICKED. Ungimmick.
What do we need to buy this time?
Oh, we need something. Oh, yes. What do we need?
You're gonna say like Matt needs to buy funny jokes. Or
Hey, how about Matt needs to buy funny jokes. I think
That's
yeah.
really good.
Cool. Yeah, dude.
You know
Dude,
what?
it just popped into my
split
head.
it,
I don't know.
Sanjeev.
It just popped in. Yeah.
Split it. We'll split it.
But Sanjeev, isn't it crazy how silent letters work? Like, is it crazy how sometimes letters are silent for some people and not for others? I don't know. It just seems crazy to me. I mean, I don't have any examples coming up like this, but just a random thought I had.
Coins have so much symbolism.
I'm so lost. What's going on?
This is 30 seconds of private jokes in the middle of a podcast.
That
I love
I
you
somehow
guys.
I'm not aware of.
Yeah, Alex, big heart, my man.
Big heart to you, my man.
Gonzalo, give it to me for the breather, dude.
I am. I'm passing it over to you, Sanjeev. Take the breather crimp away.
Yes, sir. In a time of bite-sized magic content online, whether it's 20-minute downloads or easy YouTube video tutorials, I think it is definitely very difficult to take the dive and commit to reading an actual book, but there is so much to gain from it. So I'm going to recommend a book. This is Strong Magic by Darwin Ortiz. This is, to me, a stepping stone to start thinking about aspects of your magic that are not commonly discussed enough. My perception of an artist, one of the things to me that determines if you're an artist or not is being in complete control, in the sense that you know what you are doing and you know why you are doing it. You know the reason behind every single thing you do. And too often stop thinking too soon. We stop thinking after, oh, I'm going to do this control because, oh, it fits in this action. Wow, I'm such a good magician. But I think recently I've realized that you have to put thought into what your final image is, how you turn over a card, how you talk to a spectator, how you say a specific sentence, how you introduce a prop, how you put away a prop, where it's sitting on the table when you're not using it. And Strong Magic is a great opening to that. It talks about meaning, it talks about intent, it talks about thinking through why you're doing what you're doing and how to express what you want to say. So, great book overall. Highly recommend.
Thank you, Sanjeev. And that is our halfway point done. So please argue away.
Oh, dude. No, like, if I remember, where did we leave off? We left off at
Well, you
Alex
were
making
listing
the point.
the. Oh,
yeah, we were
I-
agreeing on the specificity of Zoom magic being one thing, and then
Don't
magic
assume
being
you can
another
do
thing.
Zoom magic just because you can do
Yeah,
regular
exactly. And I
magic.
think we
That's
were
a very
making a
arrogant
distinction
take.
between long-term interactive magicians and people that just doing it out of necessity or just because they want to.
Yeah, and it's important to say and to underline that we are not trying to discredit people that are trying to pay their bills at the end of the month right now.
That's true.
We're not saying that if you are a magician and you're doing Zoom shows during quarantine, no, burn him at the stake. Of course not. We're
looking at this as a long-term
yes.
strategy.
So this conversation is meant to elaborate on what will magic or interactive magic on the internet will look like, because Instagram magic would be a completely different aspect of it.
No, see, that's a great parallel, right? Look at all. There was so much discourse on this right at the beginning of quarantine. So many people were used to say, "Oh, social media magic is just hack magic. That's not good." And then quarantine starts, boom! So many magicians are now doing social media magic, right? Similar example, but I do believe, and maybe this is a belief just to reassure my sense that the world is fair. I do think that people who just jump into it now and do social media magic for a week, I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as the people who have been devoting years to it. The people who spend months thinking about their Zoom show, I think they're going to be miles ahead of the person who's like, oh, I have an existing client base. Maybe I should do a Zoom show just for these 2 weeks until I can get back to regular magic. Oh, let me just toss together this stuff, because this is just temporary, right? The moment you frame it as this is just a temporary side thing I'm going to do, you are not paying it the respect of an art form. And the moment that happens, you get bad shows. And I think that's an epidemic that we're all in now. And again, the issue is people are, especially lay people, they're going to see one Zoom magic show, and that's going to decide their opinion on all Zoom magic shows. And we don't want it to be a bad one, right?
And it's like you just said, it's about intent.
Yeah.
Is it a thing that's long term, short term, and everything? And I remember, and you guys know that we're not here to do name calling, and we avoid trying to say who it is. But there was a post, was it a Twitter post or a Facebook post? I don't remember, about a famous magician, which I will remain unnamed, that said, if you're thinking of doing a Zoom magic show, don't. Which I couldn't disagree more with. if you wanted to do a Zoom magic show, well, first of all, why? And if you have a good reason,
Nice.
just do it.
Nice.
That's an extra bleep for you. And if you're gonna do it for 2 weeks and are gonna bomb, well, I'm sorry for your clients, because you're gonna give them an improper image of what Zoom magic should be, and maybe leave it to people that do it better. But I just don't like that approach of saying, if you want to do it, then just don't. I think it's very reductive.
It's limiting. Yeah.
Discouraging.
There's a point Sanjeev made really quickly. I know this is not the topic, but he did mention social media magic.
If you say it, then
Matthew
just don't say
of course,
it.
Matthew started talking, had to be off subject.
No, just wait.
Go on.
Oh, okay, but social media, just a problem that distinguishes social media magic from Zoom magic is because social media, especially Instagram and Facebook magic, is incredibly short form. A Zoom show, you do have the added benefit of it being like a long form kind of deal. Because
Exactly.
Oh, Matthew, wait a second, you're
What
right.
you call a benefit, I call not a benefit. I
Yeah.
think that's your opinion. That's a
Or
benefit.
not.
I'm
Oh, wait a
so-
second,
gonna say
Matthew,
something.
you are
He's gonna
completely
roast me.
right. That was absolutely not the topic.
Oh, I don't want to go off topic either. Oh, that's fair. Okay, Matt, let's shelve this. We'll discuss this on a social media magic episode.
That's a good point. Jesus Christ.
But how about you keep that point for when we discuss social media magic,
Next
homie?
topic. Next topic.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, but I will take a point from that, and parallel to our situation, things that we frame as benefits and cons, nah, that's our opinion. That's our interpretation. Something that is literally just the simplest point. Oh, in the comfort of your own home. That's so horrible. That's not real magic. You can frame it as a con. In the comfort of your own home. People love that. There are so many people who do not have the means to afford a high-end good magic show in person, or maybe just don't have the ability to travel to a magic show, like in a time like this. And that same aspect, maybe is that a neutral word? That same aspect can be framed as both a positive and a negative. And I think we need to remember both sides of that when we weigh something.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think when I was thinking about this topic, obviously when you do something and talk about something that deals with opinions, it's subjective. But I don't think I realized how subjective this situation is. Like, it's just so opinionated, because if there is a demand, there will be a supply.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you just said, if there's a group of people who enjoy sitting down in their underwear and watching Zoom, there will be someone for them to do that.
Well, let me
makes
put it
sense.
into a little bit of more. Then I'll put it into objective terms for you, and something that Sanjeev said: cost. That I can't be more objective than money, and it will come down to Zoom
Yes,
magic.
you
Can.
Money is literally the most subjective
Money
thing
is
ever.
very subjective.
No. When it comes to people and their entertainment, when it comes down to money and how much something costs, that's a very important question.
Okay.
And with Zoom magic, you will see, and it could, of course, you can make a Zoom magic that costs $1 million to produce. That's not my point.
Gonna happen. Yeah.
But Zoom magic can be much more affordable for the performer.
Will be.
But it will be for the performer, but ultimately for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And magic is still a very high-end form of entertainment, because it is live theater. Theater is already a bit of an expensive art. If you compare it to cinema, perhaps would be the semi-equivalent. So magic is expensive. If you go out to a magic show, you will spend a lot of money for that ticket.
Yeah.
Zoom will drive down that cost, and people that are interested in magic and don't have the means to go to a full-on magic show will inevitably fall under the category of people that want this type of entertainment. And there you have your demand raising right there.
Dude, it sounds great. A YouTube video, but with interaction, and you can actually talk to the magician, and it's affordable. That sounds great.
Yeah, yes, but there's lots of things you're not considering. Like, it's, and I agree with everything you say, just for starters, but you don't have to look at cost. You have to look at cost benefit. What are the quality of what you're getting versus how much you're paying for it, obviously.
Good.
And then just being cheap is, if the only thing you have to say about your show is that it's cheaper, maybe work on other stuff. On another note, live magic shows come in a variety of different formats, some of which are very, very cheap. See what I mean? All I mean is, I agree with what you're saying, but it's also quite restrictive.
I think you're reducing my point a little bit.
I'm trying to expand it.
No, but then I think we'll see in the next couple of years an organization like the Magic Castle that is solely virtual shows.
I
That
believe that.
it will become a big worldwide magician group, organization, club, whatever you want to call it, that will put on shows maybe weekly, and they will have a weekly segment that for those 2 hours is an interactive, and multiple magicians from around the world will come in. That I see this as a very possible thing that will happen.
Also, quick extra point: remote work. Boom. There's another thing that was kind of a concept, but was not mainstream by any means until this specific situation where it became a necessity. Remote work is not going away.
It's not.
I mean,
have
at
to
this
disagree
scale, by
strongly.
the way.
It was very much a thing in so many works.
Not at the scale, my guy.
Not at
Not at this scale, obviously, because once again, it's out of necessity.
Ah,
But,
but
But that's what I'm
saying-
telling you. So then you're proving my
but
point.
remote work,
right,
I
based on
agree.
Jeeves.
all I'm saying
Remote
is I
work
don't
is
think
here
it's
to stay.
relevant. It's not a
Remote work
relevant
is going to
synonym.
stay.
But I
My
think it's
point,
very
though,
relevant.
I don't think
my
it's a good
point with it
comparison.
is corporate magic. Now, if remote work is a thing, you now have a situation where there's a lot of people who are interacting in the workplace solely virtually. Magic shows for them, Zoom shows. You cannot bring in I mean, obviously, there's still going to be a market for in-person corporate entertainment, but now you have this new market. I'm not saying it's going to infringe upon this. I'm just saying there's a new one. And there's another reason why Zoom shows will stay around.
Well, I just want to say how much I love this.
Yeah, it's really
I
nice to talk
love
to you guys.
This. I love that we agree, but we also don't. And I just, it makes it
Yeah.
so interesting to listen to.
Well, I think that could be the death of corporate magic because of the remote work. Because
dude.
well, probably not. But I have so many problems with corporatism in general.
Okay.
Just the whole way it's structured, just the fakeness of it. I think people will, with the option to be at home and do their own thing, will opt out of the corporate events unless they're specifically networking because they need it.
No, it would be like
Because a
breaks,
lot of
like
office work
midday.
The Office is a show that is so popular because it perfectly captures what's so absurd about corporatism. It's the fact that people are there doing something they don't want to do, and if they can be at home where it's more comfortable, it's just better overall. If they want to go see a magic show from there, that's their choice. I'm not in any position to tell people what they should and shouldn't do, but I don't know.
See, I'm
I don't
sorry.
like
I'm
corporate
sorry
gigs in
if
general.
I'm sorry if I come off a little bit harsh, but Matthew, I think you're being incredibly short-sighted. You are not allowing yourself to see where this could grow. And I said this 20 minutes ago. You are analyzing it over what has happened in the past 3 months and what will happen over the next 3 months. So you're analyzing this in a 6-month span, and I want to analyze this in the next 30 years.
Yeah, the thing is, like, and Gustavo, you made some great points, but I think you're also, there's a bunch of things you're missing.
Of course, I'm not saying that my argument is foolproof.
Absolutely, and yeah, it is going to be a thing, and for people that want to invest in it, and it's certainly going to be a thing for those people. But I just think that I don't agree with the pros and the cons of that you're pointing out from virtual magic show versus physical.
Then
magic
let me talk directly about the corporate aspect of it. Yes, most likely, if I was, I'm not fit for the corporate world anyway. But if I was in a corporate world and they told me, "Hey, we have this event where we're bringing a magician. You're in your home and you just log into Zoom."
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, for me, I mean, personally, like, okay, cool. But it's
Especially if your boss is telling you.
no, but
Yeah,
you see,
exactly.
but that's a one aspect of how it could be tailored to a corporate audience. It doesn't have to be a show. You need, especially nowadays, you're seeing it more and more and more. Of course, most of these things start in the United States. If you're listening to this podcast in Europe, maybe in the next 15 years you'll see this actually happening. But team bonding is a thing now. Like, companies spend a lot of money.
Dude, this is
and
not
time.
just US, calm down.
Insane amounts of money.
No, but
So
it's
if you're
crazy.
in Europe and don't have electricity yet, don't worry. It will eventually come to you, and you'll be able to have like live shows. And it's
I'm
gonna be
saying-
amazing.
Says the one.
Listen,
says the guy who's
yes,
European.
but that's why I'm saying, especially because in those terms of practices, Europe, and then I'll put it more, I'll relate it closely to me. Portugal is incredibly behind in those things. It normally California and New York start it, then the rest of the US does it, and then Europe kind of, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But I digress.
Okay.
Yo, no.
Real
I want to
quick.
go. I have something real. I want to go after Sanjeev.
Okay, yes.
Go
real quick,
after him.
Because we are nearing the end, right?
No.
And
Yeah,
we
this-
are
close to the
unfortunately.
end.
we are. And this discussion, we've created a lot of nuance, which is great. But I don't see us getting anywhere. I think we can do more productive things in the next few minutes. So, how to make a Zoom show better? Okay, I want to start that conversation.
Is that the point?
I think it is a useful point that I would at least want to know
I mean,
personally.
it is a great point, but
Because I don't know-
Or is anyone here qualified to really say much about that?
It's just
Are
ideation.
we
We're
are we
speaking
qualified to
more-
say anything about anything?
We're speaking more as audience members than magicians. I want to speak as an audience member. And as a first thing to start the discussion, I think a Zoom magic show should have some moment that would not be possible in a regular magic show. I think you need to take advantage of the platform somehow.
I think that there's something should happen directly with the audience or in their house. Something should happen
Nice,
in
I like
front
that.
of them.
Yeah.
I think that more than just watching something happen and live and interactively, something should happen with them that they can feel or touch. Or
I'm going to add some nuance to Sanjeev's point. Sanjeev, you were saying something that happens that can't happen in a show that can only happen over the Zoom format. That is noticeable to the audience because you can do laps and you can do stuff off camera, which it can only be done over Zoom,
Yeah.
but it's not
It has to
noticeable to the
feel
audience.
different to. For example, I will say that it feels different if you pull off a playing card and it's the card they named versus when you rummage in your pocket and you come out like this. And I think I would call those as different.
Yeah,
I would say they feel different too.
And there's also a benefit that, especially if you're like a corporate worker, let's be real. Why are magicians at corporate events? To make
Why
them
magicians at
bearable.
corporate events. Nice.
To make, and I'm not saying this in like a joke way. Like obviously there are exceptions and everything, but most of the time you're bring a little bit of entertainment to give people incentive and make it a more enjoyable experience for everyone. Which, by the way, is a reason why I think it's not really appropriate to talk about Zoom corporate, because there's like, do people want to come? Is it appropriate to do
But
that?
there's also
Whatever.
a lot more to corporate magic than just magic.
Yeah,
at
absolutely. But
corporate
let me
events.
just take that example. I'll just give the example because that's typically a place where people aren't expecting to go
sure.
see a magician,
For
which
sure.
puts the magician in front of a little bit of adversity sometimes. A cool thing with Zoom is that I think you're going to experience less people forced to connect to that Zoom. You know what I mean? So I think you can also assume that most of your audience is going to be happy to be there and engaged by default. I think it's going to be more systematic than for walk-around performers. If your boss is forcing you to a corporate event and, and as a magician like, oh, fuck this, well, your boss is a little bit of a dick. But if your boss forces you to connect to a Zoom magic show, oh, wow. What a... Whoa. Do you really want to... I'm not going to go any further, but see what I mean? So also, I think you can exploit the fact that people are also, the medium makes them more enticed to be happier to be there. As opposed to walk around, not theater.
of course, Connor, I'm
So
giving
I-
you the last point. We do have to wrap it up.
Sanjeev, I figured it out. I figured out 2 real world examples of what we're talking about.
Interesting. Go on.
The first one is streaming services. Why go to the movie theater when you can stream the movie at home? And now we're seeing a market for both, and that's inevitable. The second one is not as directly correlated, but the invention of the television. We are no longer having to go to the theater to watch whatever Hello Dolly. Now you can watch whatever show you want at home. And now we see the television, entertainment industry has boomed and the theater industry has boomed. It's like they're both separate and they grow independently.
I absolutely appreciate that point, and I agree that, and I will concede that it is possible that this will grow into something much, much larger, okay? However, those 2 examples are non-interactive forms of entertainment. Magic is specifically an interactive thing, which makes this much more difficult to do well.
So, boys, I think it's a good moment to end and say, let's just, for once, and I think it's amazing, all agree to disagree.
Entirely.
I think Matt and I are more on the side of it's going to become a thing, but it's going to be significant. It's going to be pretty minute to compare to real Magic, and I think Gonzalo and Sanjeev are more on the side of it's going to become something much more significant. But I have different opinions. That's awesome.
And all
Interesting.
this, all this
I like
came
that.
from Connor bringing it up and researching. So thank you, Connor, for doing that. We are nearing the end, but not at the end yet, because we have our assembly. Alex, take it away.
Yes, sir. So the assembly has the objective to take the subject we've been talking about and sort of expand on other maybe forms of arts or forms of science or anything really. And I wanted to say, well, live entertainment is not just live magic. and online entertainment is not only online magic, and other art forms aren't maybe as naturally adapted to be online because with magic there's a visual elements and everything, but other forms of art have been trying their very best to come online. And one form of art I think we all love is comedy. And comedy you don't have that like going to the comedy and having like that atmosphere, but you could still get a good crack out of some good comedy. And a lot of clubs that are around you are probably airing artists and also probably giving opportunities to people that can now do it from home. So it works the other way. Mm-hmm. And those comedy clubs, some of them are in dire need of help simply because, well, they rely on people coming and paying for drinks and everything to survive. So look around your space. There probably is a comedy club that wouldn't say no to an extra ticket purchase, and you get to spend a great night with your family. Because I'm near DC, I'm just going to shout out DC Improv because they're amazing, and I've seen a couple of shows online, and they have some big names, they have some small names, some really cool interactive events. But I would encourage you to support your local comedy club.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. This was a longer episode, a little bit. I let it run just because I think it was my favorite one so far.
It was necessary. It needed to go longer.
For everyone still here with us, don't forget to come and meet us on our social media. That is Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. There's Patreon and other things. Share this with a friend, please. And from us, all that's left is to give you a big hug. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We had Alex, Connor, Matthew, and Sanjeev on call today.
Thank you.
My name is Gonzalo.
Thank you.
This was Ungimmick.